Hello, I am going live because American friend have requested me to make a video in English so that everybody can understand. So, to explain this really simple, there is a heat loss inside the engine at all times, and it is a result of a falling electromagnetic field. So by taking out the heat loss from the engine, instead of the heat loss just going internally and making a heat band inside the engine, you can take out the heat loss or varmetapet. You take out the heat loss, you put it in this box where you have a lot of switches. And this box is very simple. Inside this box is lots of condensators, capacitors, and a lot of wires. So mess inside there, but it works. So again, I'm online because a friend in the States, United States of America, have requested me to make this video in English, as he doesn't understand Norwegian. So I'm just making a short video in English just to explain a little bit. And when it comes to three-phase engines, all of them, when connected to the house on three-phase house outlet, they use, example, this engine from 1952 will use not less than 600 watts, and that engine there is a 5.5 horsepower engine, will consume almost 800 watts. I had it to run on three-phase. If I don't remember incorrect, it was 798 watts on three-phase outlet from Norwegian in Norway many years ago. This engine here is ABB engine. What is it there? It's 2.5 kilowatt. So, and that there will use easily more than 750 watts from if you connect it to the three-phase house outlet. And this engine here is 0.5 horsepower engine, will consume a little bit less than those bigger engines, and but on the on this system, you actually as you see here, I have this ring trafo here, okay, and this ring trafo transformed down to if the input is 230 volts, the output will be 110 volts. So what I do here, I actually reduce the volt input, and I also here there is 380 volts configuration, and there is 220 volt configuration. So in E mode you get which it is now, okay, you can see there those three on top there is connected together, which is visible here with those. So these three is connected together, so it is adjusted for 380 volts, and that's very important. So because the engine becomes more efficient when you run it in E mode, okay. So the the point is that you have to have as little volt in as possible, and the engine has to be configured for the highest possible voltage. And okay, you know, a volt times amp is watts. Okay, so by reducing the volt input, I can reduce how many watts this engine will use. Okay, you turn on this engine now. Now it runs at 174 volts or so. Amp is 0.6, and the watt is 3 watts. So this engine now runs on as little as 3 watts. And the reason for that is that the heat loss that is inside the engine has the ability to come out on the cable that goes into that box there. And that is this speaker cable. And this speaker cable is connected here and there. Okay, so you have one leg on the 3-phase. You have 3 outputs, okay, or inputs, shall I say instead, where these 2 cables here goes in here and in there, where I then emulate the last phase on the engine here between these 2 available legs. It doesn't really matter if I emulate that one and that one, or that one and that one, doesn't really matter. In this case it is between this one and this one. What happens is that the back EMF inside the engine has the ability to escape the engine before the back EMF or the heat loss make a break on the engine. Because, easily explain it, let's say on this is just a generator, but if the drive pulse starts here, there's 50 drive pulses per second here in Sweden at least. States have 60 Hz. So if you move the disc from here to there, that's one drive impulse. And from there to there is the next one. But before the next one, it has to rotate to there. And from there to there, you have a falling electromagnetic field that will actually try to move the engine the other way. And the reason for that is that the sine wave goes like this, okay? And this is 0 here, this line here is 0. You have the sine wave like this. When the sine wave is on top, then the drive pulse is down. But you have something that happens from here and down to the 0, okay? And from top to 0, you have a falling electromagnetic field. What happens to that field? Yes, well, any electromagnetic field in movement will create an electric current, which again will create an electromagnetic field. So the falling electromagnetic field from top, when the drive pulse is down and to 0 again, will create a brake force. That brake force is the back EMF or the heat loss. Normal science will say that you cannot take out the heat loss from an engine. And of course, normal science doesn't understand that you can, because they just call it heat loss or varmetap in Norwegian language. And because of, they just state it is a loss, of course. And of course it is a loss. But the point being is that loss is approx 40 to 50%, depending on the engine. What type of engine it is, what kind of configuration you have connected it, and so forth. So it can be up to 50%, and if you have magnetic engines, permanent magnetic engines, the heat loss energy can become over 50% of the input, which means that the heat loss is breaking the engine with somewhere between 40 to 50% of the actual input energy. In some cases even more. And so you actually waste, by running this engine from the net power in your house, on three-phase net power from your house, you are actually wasting so incredible much energy just to have this spinning, because the engine has to overcome the heat loss. And that is why a typical engine like this will use 600 watts on the three-phase outlet from the house easy. And this one 800 watts easy. And that blue one there, not less than 600 watts for sure. It's as I showed just a few minutes ago, it's a 2.5 kilowatt engine, so it will, and it is in poor condition as well, so maybe more than 900 watts, who knows. I never tested that one, on the three-phase outlet. I did test this one, 798 watts. So I'm just repeating myself a little bit, just to, you know. And anyway, so that is a large amount of energy that just will stay inside the engine and create magnetic friction, lens effect if you want. But instead of doing that, I'm taking out the power on these two legs, and since a condensator, a capacitor, has less friction in taking energy into itself than the engine, because electrons will jump to the easiest route, right? Always the easiest route. And therefore, the back EMF or the heat loss will always jump to this cable here, into the capacitor bank. And when the capacitor bank is correct adjusted, then the engine will be in harmony with itself. And that is the reason why we are running this engine here on 2 or 3 watts, sometimes only 2 watts. And what we are actually doing here, inside this box there is lots of different sizes on capacitors. And by altering the capacitance value, by switching these switches here, is typically for very large engines, and also start capacitor, start condensator, which you can also hear if I turn on this. Now you hear a difference on the engine. Okay, and also when I turn on the start cap, the watt goes up to 32, 31 watts or so. And even more if I turn on more. Well, so it makes a sound different, and the reason for that is that when you adjust the timing here, because that's what you're doing, because a condensator that is small will empty faster, while a condensator that is big will empty slower. So in fact, when I turn on the start capacitor here, the engine is not in harmony with itself. It's not in resonance with itself. And that is because you are not emptying the energy from the heat loss into the engine at the right timing. But when the timing becomes right, like I have very small switches here, not small, but they are connected to very small capacitor with small capacitance, then I can adjust the timing input on the, see, it goes up to 4 watts, and when this is perfectly adjusted, like it was before I touched anything now, then for the first, the engine doesn't make any sound almost whatsoever, and the timing for the back EMF or the heat loss will be transferred back into the engine at the right timing. And what happens then is very interesting. I don't have a paper to write on here, so I just have to I will just make it a little bit with my hand. Instead, if you have a Cinewhale that looks like this, okay, you will have a Cinewhale that looks like a 8, like this, the internal sign, like the forever sign. And that's very interesting, because then you have two Cinewhales that works in the engine that is exactly the same height on. And when they have exactly the same height, when the field collapses like this from top on both sides of zero, something very interesting happens. It collapses and creates a bigger back EMF than before. So you get back EMF by the back EMF. That's very funny. So you have actually created two Cinewaves that at the same time, it's like rent on the bank, in the bank, okay? You have two Cinewaves going like this, and when the Cinewave go up, you get a very, very strong impulse, because the engine now have two pulses working in harmony. When these two pulses collapses, you have created much more heat loss that goes into there and then comes back at the right timing than you have in a standard configuration with only one Cinewave. That is exactly why you can, with the right timing on that box, you can, as I will work on a little bit later tomorrow if I'm lucky, I will put these two engines together and see what I can get out from them. I had an engine like this in Norway before. It was a little bit smaller than this one, and it was the same brand. It was an ABB. I'm not sure the size, probably 1.5 kilowatt or so, I'm not sure, but it was a little bit lesser. And I had two exact identical engines like this, a little bit smaller. And I called an electrician from Rognan. I don't remember his name right in the go, but it doesn't really matter. So I called him, and he come there, and he started up this thing, and just a rubber between them, and he measured 400 watts more out than we put in. And it's not because this one, if this is the generator, it's not that this actually put out anything more. It's just that this one, if this is the prime mover or the engine, and this becomes the generator, it's just that this saves energy by taking away the back EMF or the heat loss, putting in the box, and then at the right timing with these wishes, put it back into the engine and create rotational force. And by doing so, if as an example, the back EMF or the heat loss breaks the engine by, let's say, just as an example, 50%, as an example. Well, if you then put that back EMF into there, then it is not there anymore. So that means that the engine is now 50% stronger. At the same time, you have freed 50% the braking force that is braking the engine in normal application. Well, you take out that 50%, the 50% is freed in braking force, in lens effect. At the same time, this 50% energy comes back into the engine. Then suddenly you have an engine that is more than 100% efficient, okay? And that 50% there, and that 50% there, then you suddenly have an engine that runs 90% cheaper and is 50% stronger. Depending on the coupe of the engine, of course. Some engine is 80% COF, and some is 91% COF under full load and so forth. So the engine becomes extremely strong, and of course if I try to break this engine, it will consume a little bit more, and now it's not very strong, because when I do like this, I have to, at the same time, I have to adjust there, because when I break the engine, the adjustment here doesn't, or shall I say, the adjustment is not in resonance with the engine anymore. See, if you break the engine a little bit, you have to adjust here. And that's why before, in 2009 or even before, I had a system that was automatically adjusting the capistans, so that when you break the engine, there was realized and things, it's not the same box. So it will automatically adjust to the engine. So if now I can easily break this engine to its stops. Okay, it was at 25 watts or so. But if I now turn on a little bit more capistans, now I will have bigger problem breaking this engine. Okay, and if I turn on a little bit more, I will even have bigger problem. Well, until a certain point for some engines, but at least there it is a lot stronger. I have big problem stopping it there. But if I turn off, so it runs at 3 watts again, then I can stop it very easy. So it has to be adjusted accordingly to the load, and because the timing of the sine wave when I break it will change, and that means it comes out of phase, and that means you have to adjust the timing by adding more capistans. By adding more capistans there, the timing will change accordingly to the engine load. Now for me, when I break this engine with my fingers, of course it's very hard for me to hold the same load. But example, if I had this running as a generator and I had a 100-watt light bulb, it will be constant load 100 watts, and then I will just adjust this to the perfect resonance. And what will happen then is that if I just had a same engine size as this one running as a generator with a belt on here to exact same size engine or even smaller, what will happen is that I will start, example, this engine as a generator, but just by kickstarting it with a capacitor over 2 of the legs here, and then I will induce an electric current into there, and it will it will become a generator. I can guarantee you that if the load was 100 watts on the light bulb, and even with a dry belt between 2 engines, the same size, I can guarantee you that the load here will not be more than 60 watts, but the 100-watt light bulb will still light up like crazy. So, and I can guarantee you that, even with the engine from 1952, if I had 2 like this, one generator, and put one like generator and one like engine, I can guarantee you I will have not more than 60 watts input, while I will have 100 watts output over there, even with friction from the rubber belt. So as I said, the reason is very simple. I reuse the back EMF, the heat loss. It goes back and forth very, very fast, and creates a very, very strong engine. Now you have to take in account that this engine is not a very strong engine, and it is from 1952, 0.5 horsepower. Well, it's a mess to an engine. It's just scrap. However, if I connect this one as a prime mover or the engine to run that as a generator, I will probably get out more than 400 watt more output from that engine than I use as input energy here. And I know this because, as I said, in Norway, 2009, I had an electric. I called an electric and had two same engines as this, a little bit smaller, and the output was 400 watts more in than I put, more out than I put in. And the electric man, well, it did take approximately 2 hours before he understood the reality. He did, well, at least the first hour he didn't believe what he see. He was totally blown in his brain. He didn't believe anything. So anyway, 3 watts just proved the point, and this is correct. This is correct. It is not showing any bullshit values. It's a kilowatt meter, and it shows the correct amount of what's being consumed. So this is pretty amazing stuff. And if I now try to connect this to this engine, so I will do so just very fast. I just done some very quick connections here just to have it easy. So this video is, or this live stream I should say, is on request, as I said, from an American friend who is approx 80 years old and have been in the political business. So he has some funding he wants to start for this, to get some of this made, complete finished systems for run in homes in the States. I'm not sure if that's a good idea, but that's what he wants. So we will, if it's safe or not, I don't really know. But let's see here if I have get any connection here. Well, there is a connection. So right away when I switched on the start cap, then the engine started. So I will just demonstrate that again. If the start cap, the start switches is off, then what will happen is that the engine will just make a little bit sound and then nothing more. Then I turn on the start switches, or the start cap. It's not start switches. You see, and you can hear the engine now is not in harmony with itself whatsoever. Use way too much energy. The back EMF that is going into the engine is not in harmony with the Cineway whatsoever. If I turn off now and I adjust a little bit here, you see it runs on 15 watts, and that 15-16 watts, and maybe, just maybe, I can adjust a little bit here on the copy stance to see if I can get down the consumption even more. 14 watts, 13 watts. Let me see. 13, 14. Maybe that's what I can get it down to. It wants to go down to 12 watts sometimes, so maybe I have a bad capacitor in this box. I do not know for sure. Let's see if it will go up to 14 again. Yes, yeah. But okay, that is very, very good. that's extreme good. I'm trying to fine tune. So between every capistance value I put in, I have to wait a little bit because things doesn't happen right away. "12, 13. It was stable for a long time on 13. Then I touched a switch, and then it was down to 12 a little bit. You see, so it is somewhere between 12 to 13 watts, and that's not a big engine, but it's not too small either. And running on 13, 12, or there was 11. So also when I have to take in account that on this engine I have not removed the grease from the bearings, so it doesn't run very good. If I turn off this, it will come to a stop very fast. I'm not touching the engine, so it stops really fast. And when you see it stops, it is almost right away, a little bit before it is reaching the end, so almost right away. On this engine, I take away the grease inside the engine. I just put very thin oil in, and if I do a little bit on this, it will spin a lot. So of course a little bit kinetic energy because of this disc. It's quite heavy, but still. So if I take away the grease in the engine, I probably will come down to even lesser. And I also removed the fan inside here, because you don't need a fan whatsoever. The fan is just bullshit. Doesn't need fan anymore, because you have to remember, since I take out the heat loss, or the back EMF as I like to call it. EMF stands for electromagnetic field, and B stands for back electromagnetic field, or it hits back. So I don't have any fan inside here whatsoever. I removed the fan, and here it is. And I can have this engine on like, I don't know, a day or 2 or 3. I never tested how long or whatever. I probably will never experience this engine to get hot anymore, because the back EMF goes into the box. What makes heat is no longer there, so I don't need a fan. And of course that saves friction, air friction. So there is no fan whatsoever. Nothing. There it is. There's no fan. And of course it's hard for you to experience this without me having this on for many hours, but if I did have it on for many hours, it will not become hot. It starts very slow now if I don't touch the start capacitor. If I move up the start capacitor a little bit, so it will never become hot, ever. 13 watts, 14 watts. So the good tips is take out the grease inside the bearing, clean the bearing very well, and with compressed air or anything that can remove the grease, and put 1 drop of very thin oil in each bearing. Never more than one drop, never. And then this engine will run below 10 watts. Most likely below 10 watts. I had this engine, this old hair engine, to run at 8 watts, 8.88 watts. So it can really go, big engines can really go very low. Even if I had a 75 horsepower engine here, I will probably end up at maximum 40 to 45 watts or so. And under maximum load, Let's just take that engine as an example. If I connect that engine there to the net power in the house, to the three-phase net power in the house, which, of course I already have a connection for that in the house. I can do it, it's just that I don't have the cable for doing it. In Sweden they have some funny plugs for that, which I don't have, but I could easily demonstrate this engine and just use some wood to break the shaft. I could easily break this engine on the three-phase network, and having all that back EMF going on inside the engine, could easily break it so it will consume 2 kilowatts easily. But when you have this configuration here, which takes out the back EMF, putting into the box, and at the exact timing when this is correctly adjusted, it will go back into the engine. I will have a very hard time to break this engine with wood or whatever to even touch 1 kilowatt. It will be very hard, very hard. Even it's a relatively small engine, I will need to have disc brakes from a bicycle will burn up before I was able to break it. It would be too small. And still, even if I used a car brake system on this and break it maximum, I will have still a hard problem getting over 1 kilowatt on consumption when under full load. Very hard. I already tried it. It is damn bone hard to break an engine under rotor-version control. To break it to use that much, it's extremely hard. So you save a lot of power, and what's so damn cool is that the more you break this engine now, the more back EMF or heat loss is generated. Because when you put the engine under load, the Zener wave becomes higher. When the Zener wave becomes higher, it also means that you have a longer distance falling magnetic field. And that is very good, because the higher the Zener wave is, there is some kind of bearing problem there. So the higher the back EMF or the Zener wave is, the more back EMF will be put into the box. That again will turn the engine, and also will reduce the input power from the net. So the more you put load on this, the more back EMF power you will have. So that is very funny, because if you have this connected to the three-phase net, then the more load you put on the engine, the more back EMF will break the engine. So you need a lot of power to always overcome the back EMF or the heat loss. So the more you break an engine that is connected to the host net on the three-phase, the more resistance the heat loss will create. And that is totally bullshit. It's waste of energy. And totally opposite is a fact when you have a rotor-verted engine. The more load you put onto the engine, the more power goes into the cap box. Of course, when the cap box is correctly tuned to the actual load, then that's a fact. If not, then that's not a fact. But as long this is resonated or adjusted correctly, when you have 1 kilowatt load there, the back EMF that goes into here is so damn big that you load 500 watt on this generator, as a generator, then the input needed is 10 times less to run it, depending on the efficient, the COF factor of the engine. This engine, I believe, is 87% effective, not more. That's maximum. So if you use Baldur Super S-Series that you can find on eBay or Walmart or any place, they are usually more than 90% efficient, and those engines will produce a CUF of up to 198%, believe it or not. We did a test in 2006, me and a free energy researcher from California in the States. We had an output of nearly 6 kilowatt with an input of 635 watts. And if you don't believe me, well, just look at the video on my wall on Facebook and you will see it. It's there. Even though that video was never made for proving anything, it was just a video log of what me and a fellow free energy researcher friend did together remotely, because I lived in Norway, he lived in the States, so I never met the man at all, but we did a remote work together and brainstormed a lot, and it gave result. And we also built a CLS direct rotoverter system. CLS stands for closed loop system, so that we if this is the generator and this is the engine, we actually put the power directly from the generator, if this is the generator, by a special box, if you like, with the diodes, relays and capacitors, and put the generator power directly, almost directly, just by a box, directly into the engine, and the system run by itself. And it was tested in Simi Valley in 3 different houses in Simi Valley for 6 months. And the system ran by itself and gave power to the house, totally off the grid for 6 months. And he had minus what that CLS direct rotoverter system did take in loss, or what the loss was on that. He had approx 4.5 kilowatt energy in average for free to run the house. And the system was without any batteries, and the engines was put together not by drive belts, just direct on the shaft. And those engines was 7.5 horsepower Baldur engines of the long one, Super S-Series. We also had a little bit larger engine that was 10 kilowatt, or 10 HP, and we was able to get out a lot more than just that. We was at almost 10 kilowatt, very close to 10 kilowatt. It was just 10 or 20 watts that was missing, and the input was 998 watts on almost 10 kilowatt out, and that was a little bit larger engines, of course, than 7.5. But those engines that we did that test on, they was too big to handle, so we didn't put that out in any house. We used 7.5 kilowatt engines. So they was running 6 months in Simi Valley in 3 different houses, and at the contract time with me and Shad, the contract was totally unfair. So the total of our income will be, or royalty will on the contract will be only 5%, which me and Shad didn't agree to. So the whole project did go to hell, and the investor did take all those 3 units and run away with it, and Shad was almost killed. He ended up in hospital and was there for 6 months, and he barely made it. He was so near dying that it's luck that he's alive today. And after he come out from the hospital, someone had rigged an explosion in his lab, so just I think it was 2 or 3 weeks after he come home from hospital, the lab exploded and he almost died again. So now he doesn't, I talked to him like 4 or 5 months ago, and he doesn't want to come to Sweden right away or anywhere, and he doesn't want to do any free energy research in the States, but as soon he are ready to come to Europe or Scandinavia or wherever, we will start real work and recreate what we already has been successful with. So, well, I am recording this video for a friend in the States. He asked to make it for me to talk English because most of the other videos is in Norwegian. So, and he wants to start some funding for this. And tomorrow I'm going to, if I get time, I'm not sure, but if I get time tomorrow, I'm going to put this up as a generator and this up as the engine or prime mover, and I'm going to spin this as a generator and see if this really can put out some juice. And I know it can, but I don't know how much juice it will put out. Only 0.5 horsepower, so that is equivalent to 1 kilowatt. 1 horsepower is 0.73 kilowatts. So well, I split that in half, so it's not a lot. It's not a lot of watt, but maybe I can get some out of it, and it doesn't really matter how much I get out of it. If I can get a 100 watt light bulb to light up or whatever, then that's great, and we can actually measure how much load the generator is under, and we can see the input on that engine and see what it will do. Now, taking account that these engines, I found both these engines here, that one and that one on the scrapyard, just lesser than a week ago, and that engine there has a bad condition. It makes some whining sounds sometimes, so we will see what it can do. But I know that if this configuration here is good enough, then I will prove our unity. If not, I will try to find the rubber wheel for this engine, or just go to a scrapyard and find something and put it on and put these two up in rubber band configuration and see what it will do. But that will be some days too. But maybe tomorrow we'll be able to do these two engines and then see what the result will be. I expect running that one as a generator, I will have 1952 old engine. Holy cow. I guess I will press out maximum 300 watt from it, and when this engine is under 300 watt load, this engine will be maybe at 250, maybe. So we will see how it goes. Both engines are under very poor condition, and I may need to take away the grease and in the bearings, and also in this, and fix everything so it's ready. But as I said, maybe I will start tomorrow, have time for that tomorrow, and then get started on it. So we will see. In lesser than a week, I will be online again and do a test on that. And yeah, I really don't know what more to say. I think I explained this really good in English, and it is very interesting how you can save energy on engines, absolutely. Instead of wasting the heat loss for nothing, then you can use it to rotational energy, and that's why it's called a rotoverter, or RV in short. So you rotovert an engine, and you do that at home, and you will see extreme results. Totally fantastic result. By the way, I think I will try to start this engine there on the battery, just to show a little bit. I have an inverter here. That's an inverter right there, and that's the battery. So the cables there go directly to the battery, and nothing else. Let me see what if it can start from the battery. By the way, that battery there is very, very poor. Let me see here. Just rotate your phone. No. Okay. I'll just check that the connection is very good here. Okay, so we see here. Now capacitance is on full because the battery is very poor, very weak, so I have to run full capacitance. Ow, 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 ow. I don't like that sound so much. But okay, I prove the point. I can start a big engine like that on a battery that is very poor. I don't know how much electric, how much power or juice there is on this battery, but let's find out. There we go. Let's find out how much. It's not easy to hold the mobile in all this bullshit. Helvete heller. Okay. 12,51 volt. Ja, ja. Skal vi se på ampen da? Ja, ja. 11,1. Ja, ja. Ok. Vel, det er jo ikke fulladet i hvert fall. Det er noe en ting som er sikkert. For fulladet batteri skal ha 13,8 volt. Så starta en sånn der svær motor på et usselt batteri som nesten ikke har noe juice igjen. Det er jo ganske utrolig. Så kjører vi på 23 watt. Vi ser om vi klarer å justere litt grann. 24, 23, 22. Han bruker litt mindre strøm direkte fra husnettet, men 20-21 watt fra batteriet, det er jo jaggu meg ikke dårlig. At vi i det hele tatt klart å starte den der motoren med det der lille batteriet som er nesten out of juice, det er i seg selv ganske fantastisk. Men det er takket være det at back-EMF-en eller varmetapet opererer ikke i motoren lenger, fordi at selv om jeg slår på under start her, for det er under start som er kritisk med et svagt batteri, og faen, nå prater jeg norsk. Ja. In start of engine like this with a very small battery and that has very poor with the volts and all that stuff, and through an inverter, it's pretty amazing. You can start a big engine like that and run now at 20-21 watt. And the reason we can do so, to start an engine like that with just a small battery and a very small inverter, 1000 watt inverter, 1000 watt and 2500 in the peaks, peak power, 2500 watt, continuous use 1000 watts. The reason for that is that when we start the engine, I turn all these switches on full. What happens is that the heat loss inside the engine is transferred to the box and back to the engine, and working to power the engine's rotation force. So instead of the heat loss is trying to break the engine from starting when you have a falling pulse on the Cineway from top to zero inside the engine. Now I have power from the back EMF to actually turn the engine. And that is the only reason I can start this engine on very poor system like this. So okay, stable at 20 watts, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. $19. Ah, 19. Seems like it likes 19. Ah. Okay, seems like I was able to get it stable at 19 watts. So that is pretty amazing. That is very amazing. Very amazing. So this, by the way, is 115 volt inverter. So we see what the volt input is from here. 119.3 volts, 119.3 volts, amp 0.24, 0.25, up and down a little bit. It's pretty stable there, pretty stable between 24 to 25. So this is volt and this is amp and this is watt. Now it's sometimes down to 18 watts, so we are pretty good in resonance. Now it means that the capacitance value is in harmony with putting out the heat loss from the engine and then putting it back at the correct timing. And the timing, of course, is adjusted by the capacitance, or how big the condensator is. It wants to go down to 18 sometimes, so it's pretty amazing. Good deal. So take out the grease from these bearings and have one drop of very thin oil, and I will have it down, especially from Cineway that comes from this, because Cineway from the inverter is a little bit bad, not very good. It's a very cheap inverter, by the way. So Cineway from the net power, I will get it down to below 10 watts if I take out the grease. It's just amazing. Ja, så sånn er det. Vi vil se her. Now I will connect this engine. This is next. Let me see here. Take out that one. Turn off this one. Okie dokie. Let's see what the other little bit bigger engine will do. Let me see. Try to connect a little bit here. Don't really have so good connections here. Should have some real thing here, but I just like to have it real quick. That's how I like it. So we see here, and it doesn't really need to be very good in there. It only need to, you know, just for a test. Doesn't really need any big deal. You can just put the wires in there, and I have to put the mobile a little bit down for a while. So you will see the roof for a while, but I guess that's okay for a little bit of time. Boring roof, right? Yeah. You see here. Boring roof. It's now I'm trying the best to hurry up here. So you see. Not easy when I don't have a very professional. Before I used to use magnets here, so it was so easy. But now I don't have that anymore. Should make it. Shit, helvete heller altså. Ja. Det er faen ikke sikkert det her startet nå, for det er ikke sikkert det har kontakt. I'm not sure. We will try. I'm sorry about that. We will try. So you see here. This time I will start from the net power. So I have to take out this one and put it in here. You see here. Okay, now it is in there. You see. And see if it's now I have start capacitor on. I turn off the start capacitor because it's not needed anymore. Now I don't know the actual RPM of this engine. I proc 1450 RPM or so. It's hard to see on that label there what it is. Anyhow, now we are running this engine at 13 watts. Okay, amp consumption is 0.62 amp or 0.6 amp and 13 watt or so. You see if I adjust a little bit, if that will help, can trick it down a little bit, right away a little bit maybe. Well, seems like I can stable it on 12 watts. I mean watts, I mean watt. So 0.3 amps at 175.2 watts. That's pretty amazing. 12 watt. This big thing run on 12 watts. That's pretty amazing. And it also have a rotation, a big magnetic disc on here. That is, when I put it together, it will be a generator. So, of course a little bit air friction here and there, but that is really, see, it was down to 11 watts for a while there. So this is pretty amazing. This is really amazing. If you calculate what is used in watt, because this tool here, the kilowatt meter, also measure what this is consuming, because to transfer down the volt from 220 volts to 110 volts or whatever, it costs a little bit watt. So when you calculate this, you will find out that this engine is actually running below that. So because this tool actually measure anything that's going on from that cable that is connected to the engine. It measures absolutely everything. So take away, if you calculate away the loss here, you will find out that the engine uses 8.88 watts. So that is, and that means the same for this and this. So the actual use of the engine is lower than you can see here. But that doesn't really matter because you need this one anyway. So this is the total consume of the engine and that one. You need it because you put down the watt usage by approx 50%. And if I had a variable ring trafo that I can adjust the watt, then I will adjust the watt down to 38 volts or so, and I will be able to run this engine with that one. Let's say this one reduces from 220 volts down to 38 volts, even including the loss here. I will be able to get this engine to run less than, including this one, less than 5 watts, if I had, but I don't have. Because volt times amp are like watt. So if you reduce the volt input, well, you reduce it from 220 to, let's say, 110. Well, volt times amp is watt, so it means that you have just half the use in watts. But even if you just have 38 volts with the right Zener wave, the engine will not be any poorer. It will just regardless with this rotor version on, it will become stronger than the engine on three-phase horsepower. A lot stronger, even with just 38 watts. So if you, I'm not so good in math, but if I had an input of 38 volts right now to the engine, then times 38 volts times 0.3 amps, well, you can calculate that yourself. Then that will be maybe 5-6 watts or so, not even that. I have this engine run on 3 watts, so it's not impossible that if I run that engine here from the inverter, I start it with the battery and then I just have a switch, and I switch over to a battery that is on the size of this, or just like a matches, size of a matches, a battery the size of a match, you know, light fire, that box. I will be able to run that engine from a battery as small I can hide it in my hand. That is the reality. So, but of course you will not have any use to just run it other than idle. So anyway, that is how amazing this system really is. That is just fantastic. So I see I have some people from Saltdal here. That's so cool. Thanks for visiting. Well. So now you see how easy you can do it. Save power, a lot of power. And well, I really want to break this engine just to show you, but I'm scared to burn myself. So, and it's not really anything I can break the engine with here without fuck up something here. So, but I'm putting a lot of load on this now. A lot. I'm actually was up in 53 watts, and I'm really squeezing hard on that until I almost burn myself. Of course, when I'm breaking this one, to keep it at that value, I have to have an automatic capacitor system that automatically switches this automatically to the correct timing when I'm braking, because I cannot hold the mobile and brake here and do the switches at the same time. But if I was able to do that, I had 3 or 4 hands, I would be able to brake this and as hard as I can until I burn myself, and that will never go over 30 watts, never, ever. If I had someone to switch and that has experience, or I had 3 hands and used my own experience, I will be able to fine-tune, so no matter how much I did brake this engine in my hand, never over 30 watts, never. So it's a very strong engine, so it's pretty amazing. But anyway, I don't know what more to say. I explained back EMF, what it is. It's a heat loss, and instead of just waste the heat loss to make the engine warm inside and just break the engine and make the engine use a lot of power just to overcome the braking force, why just not put on a simple box like that, and you have whatever, it's a water pump you have, 3-phase water pump you have, or a pool pump, or anything you can dream of that you need to save power on. You can just connect a box like that and make sure that you write down the microfarad values on each switch, so that you tune if it's a pool pump, for example, you connect a switch box like this and have all the values of microfarad on the switches. You tune it to the lowest possible watt usage, and then you know by calculating, you know the values. I don't know that anymore because I forgot what is connected where on the switches. Lowest to highest, that's all I know. I forgot all. But if you do that anyway, whatsoever, the point is that you use a switch box like this to find the correct value, and then you know the correct value, and then you just buy a condensator that has that value. And if you cannot find a condensator that has exact that value, you can just use in parallel a smaller capacitor to get exact what you need, and then just connect it there, and then just make a switch so that you have the start capacitance for starting the engine, and then just a switch to switch it over to the tune capacitor, and you will have a pool pump that runs instead of running a pool pump on 1.5 kilowatt, you will certainly have a pool pump that runs on 200 to 300 watts, maximum 300 watts. So because you use the energy, the heat loss energy, put it in there, and it goes back to the engine, and at the right timing it will make the engine extremely strong. Okay, now I've tested all the 3 engines I have. I have one more engine in the garage, which is a water pump, well, it will be a little bit messy if I try to pump water now. It's winter time, but to the summer I will definitely do a test on that and show you that I can pump water on what the pump can do for lesser than 300 watts. And I will connect it to the 3-phase home network and show you that the engine then will use not less than 1 kilowatt. So understand that difference, and you can also understand that by saving energy you can get out free energy without a question. You save energy on the prime mover of the engine, then sooner or later you have free energy, because the engine runs lower than scientifically known as possible. The scientists only state it's a loss. Well, it is a loss if you don't have that box. So they are right. they are damn right. It's a damn loss. If you don't know about this, then of course it's a loss. And they don't know about it, so they only conclude by it that way. Since they don't know about this, or they don't understand, or whatever they do, I don't know really what they are thinking. But because of, they just see it is a loss, and that's it. They themselves never get to think that free energy is possible. They always just will state it is impossible because they don't know better. That's as simple as that. And 19 years ago, I didn't know better too about this. I was in 2000. I was new on this 19 years ago, and I didn't know it too. Even I been doing engines since I was 5 years old, building engines since I was 5 years old. Electromagnetic engines from nails or carpenter spikes or whatever. I didn't have a clue before in 2000. So, in fact, you learn about free energy the hard way. You have to try it yourself to believe it, and this is so damn simple. Engines can be found at the scrapyard, and the things inside the box here cost me I don't know $50 or so, and the switches maybe I don't know $30 maximum, and this one cost me maybe $55 maximum. So you're set with free energy really fast if you really want to. And if you see here, if you use a connection like this, it's a finger connection. This is not finished machine. This goes onto the shaft here, and the other is also not finished machined. So this is to make ready for any kind of engine, and it's like a finger. I'll show you that part without. So it looks like this, and then you just have this some rubber between. Okay, some rubber between there, and by the rubber between here, you create a good connection, even if the engine is not 100% straight. Okay, you create a very good connection, and you put two engines together on a frame like this, and put them together by one like this that you either by finish for a specific engine dimension, shaft dimension, or buy one like this if you have a machine like that and can drill and make it perfect for your engine. Connect them together, and then you have a generator and a engine. And you can actually, if you just buy very good engine on eBay, Baldur is my highest recommendation. I have seen the big stuff going on with Baldur, and the free energy researchers around the world only use Baldur, only Baldur, and I have seen big results with Baldur. You can actually run two Baldur engines, two 7.5 horsepower Baldur engines. You run that engine there. If that was a 7.5 horsepower engine, you run that all the time. And the other engine, 7.5 horsepower, Baldur becomes the generator. And you will full load on the generator. You need some system, of course, and I can be helpful with creating that system or helping online with whatever is needed. And you will run that engine there. If that was a Baldur 7.5 and this was a 7.5 Baldur, you will run that engine with full load, 635 watt. Output from this engine, if this was a Baldur 7.5, will be in the area close to 6 kilowatts, because the heat loss goes straight into the box and are put back to the engine at the right timing. As easy as that. So it is not very, a free energy is not really a hocus pocus Santa Claus thing. It is, it's obvious. And nature even have more unity or more energy in and you put it out. So I'm not going to go into that, but that will be to a later video where I explain how the sun works and how the planet works and how you can recreate the sun in a lab without burning yourself. But that's another long story, so I'm not going into that right now. But it is for those that is interested. They can read on my Facebook wall how the sun and the planet really works.